You're saying yes, yes. ये मौसम की वजह से इतने सीरियस होते हो या आर यू लाइक दिस बाय बर्थ और नेचर? लाइव ठीक है. So very good evening everyone. Good evening all. Okay. So I am here to talk about interview, especially the focus of my this interactive talk is going to be about how to start preparing about your DAF, right? So DAF is at the core of your UPSC preparation, UPSC interview preparation. Now how to take it forward? Everybody has submitted DAF now, right? The detailed application form 2, the 14th was the last date, everybody has submitted. And so many came for feedback. So I met, I think we counted actually 106 and including few more, 110 candidates I met in last 4 days. So most of them wanted to fill a very clean DAF. So that we discussed, deliberated, brainstormed with everyone, and then we were able to help in a way to present very good DAF. So now that work is over, but in Bangalore what I do is that I start intro preparation immediately after mains. So Delhi में वो culture नहीं है यहाँ पे, right? So they have phases, just like seasons. So only after result the intro preparation starts. So only after the result the hobbies and interests, starts getting developed or cultivated. So before that it's a phase of self-doubt, phase of obscurity, phase of where you're not sure about yourself, you're not sure about the future, right? But now is not the time for all these self-doubts. Now is not the time for any questions about yourself. Now is not the time for any kind of doubt in your mind. So from now onwards, everything you do, it should be done with conviction, strong self-belief, without an iota of fear. So when you walk to UPSC and from UPSC building to all the CIS of guards and then giving away everything you have, right? Carrying your mask card, certificates inside, and then you are waiting in the big hall. So from there, when your turn comes, you will be waiting in front of the interview room, the room of the chairman. And when you walk inside, ideally you should walk without an iota of fear, so without absolute fearless attitude. Now what happens, this entire interview preparation, what I have heard from many aspirants, so what I have learned from interaction with many aspirants, again is focused so much on content building. I am sure right now many people are lot worried about current affairs, right? So they want to learn current affairs, they want to know current affairs. So there is no end for current affairs, in this UPSC interview journey. Everybody wants to be good in current affairs. They think that entire interview is going to be about current affairs, the knowledge of current affairs. So I once used to be an aspirant. I also give UPSC interview without answering any current affair questions. I used to read lots of current affairs, right? Purely out of interest, purely out of curiosity, but never for the examination, but I was able to score good marks. So since then I have guided so many students without giving them any current affair questions, without giving them any DAF based questions by myself, right? It is a total assault on one's intellectual ability, one's critical thinking. When an institution comes up with a questionnaire, artificially generated questionnaires about the candidate, and they hand over the booklet of questions to candidate again to prepare on these questions, in the hope that many of these questions will be repeated in the interview. So you have to get questions, right, and then prepare your answers artificially, and then go to interview and repeat some of these answers. It doesn't work. In the real interview scenario, it doesn't work. So I'll come to that point later. But before that, let us understand, I am sure you have gone through the notification, right? So all of you have seen the notification, all of you have seen a beautiful videos of aspirants, 360-degree coverage of aspirant giving mock interviews, right? And then you have heard the toppers interviews. So various sessions of mine or other sessions about, interview preparation. But so now having selected for interview, which is a reality right now, right? You are selected for interview and you are just few marks away or one step away from becoming an IAS topper. So while I walked from my room right now, so I was just thinking over what to talk in this session and other things. So when I came out, when I went back in the afternoon, 2 o'clock, it was less crowded, the street, not so much crowded. There was only sunlight and, people were still preparing to put everything. So now when I came back from my room to the institution, it exploded, the road, right? It's an explosion of what? You can say people or hopes or aspirations, ambition, everything, and mostly in pairs, people in Delhi, right? So like we see everyone here, and I was thinking like suddenly, now I am going to address a session where people have reached the third stage, and there are thousands of people on the street, right, who are yet to crack the first stage. Maybe some of them might have done that, right? And you people, when I say it's a reality, right, first you should understand the importance of this reality, right? Out of 11,45,000 people who applied, right? So you wrote mains, maybe one among how many? 12,000? 13,000. Out of 13,000, again now one among 2,500 odd students, right? So from 2,500 odd students to 1,000 students, 1,000 candidates or 1,000 officers, right? You have 40 to 50 days time, right? So behind these 40 to 50 days, there are efforts of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, in some cases 9, 10 years also, right? Now I strongly believe, irrespective of what position you are at currently, right? So just now tweeted something, we all have, I met so many students, some of them have advantages, some of them have disadvantages, right? Irrespective of what advantages you already possess, what disadvantages you might have realized, right, or you might realize in the course of this section, in the next 50 days, you can actually develop all the requisite qualities, right? It's a very difficult task, it's a very Herculean task, so to say, but you can still develop those qualities to present yourself in such a manner that the line that is there in the notification, that to assess the personal suitability for a career in public service, to assess a personal suitability in a career of public service. So when you walk into the room, right, with all your dreams or with all your fears, the board which is present in the interview hall, right, in the notification they have mentioned that it is not the members who are sitting, it is the observers who are sitting, right. If you carefully read the notification, it says that the people who are sitting in the interview hall are unbiased and competent observers, right. It doesn't say members or humans or people. Of course we know that they are human and people, but the observer word is very important here, right. So throughout the session, the moment you walk in to the moment you walk out, you are being observed, right. Basically the entire UPSC interview that happens is a kind of a behavioral test, right. So the behavioral test is not what outside behavior you are going to express, but also that emanates from certain qualities that they are looking for. So I am sure you already know about all these qualities, right. So I want you to tell me the exact qualities that are mentioned in the UPSC notification, which UPSC wants to test. The test is not the right word, assess. So what are the words that we have in the notification?
Integrity.
What integrity? Yes, integrity is there, but what integrity? It is intellectual integrity and moral integrity, right? So that is there in the last part of the paragraph, intellectual integrity and moral integrity. We will talk about it. And what are the other qualities?
I guess coherence of ideas also it was mentioned. I guess coherence of ideas.
Coherence of ideas, but it is termed differently. What is it?
Awareness. Awareness of surrounding. Awareness of surrounding.
I don't remember.
Correct. That is there. Awareness word is there.
National and international issues. Awareness about national and international issues.
Not just awareness. There is some kind of awareness. Yeah. Coming to our point, clear and logical exposition. Right. The keyword that is there in the notification is that clear and logical exposition, which is nothing but a coherence in your thoughts, clarity in your thoughts, clarity in your communication, clear and logical exposition. So what are the other qualities? So there is one more thing, critical powers of assimilation, right? Critical powers of assimilation. Balance of judgment, balance of judgment. So these are the keywords that are there in the notification, right? Variety and depth of interest, variety and depth of interest. This is variety and depth of interest is one of the most missing component in most candidates who appear in the interview, and I believe this variety and depth of interest is the most crucial part in giving you one of the highest marks in the interview, because when something is lacking in most numbers and when few people exhibit, when few people showcase them, so that is when they will be able to get more marks. So this is one factor, variety and depth of interest, and ability for social cohesion and leadership, ability for social cohesion and leadership. So this differs in various degrees from candidate to candidate. So I see extremely introvert candidate, I see kind of outspoken candidate also, and as we discussed, intellectual and moral integrity. So UPSC says that these unbiased and competent observers are going to assess these qualities in a candidate who is sitting in front of them or who is present in the room, right? Now you have to ask the question that do you possess these qualities, right? So collectively these are called as a mental caliber of a candidate, right? And it says the assessment of not only intellectual qualities but also social traits and interest in current affairs. That word is also there, interest in current affairs. And as they were saying, there is another word, intelligent interest, right? Intelligent interest not only in academics. It is obvious for them that you already have intelligent interest in academics. Intelligent interest not only in academics but also in the events that are happening around you, in your state, in the country and outside the country, around the world. So anyway, current affairs, you people know I won't talk much about it because current everywhere current affairs. But another thing that is missing most in most of the candidates, in addition to variety and depth of interest, what I have observed based on my interactions, not having knowledge about modern currents of thought, and knowledge about new discoveries or new inventions related to anything, everything that they have mentioned in the DAF, right? Modern currents of thoughts and new discoveries related to every keyword that is mentioned in the DAF. Now, if I ask a question, okay, so what is latest in mechanical engineering? What is latest in civil engineering? What is latest in economics? Or even what is latest in history, right? So, now what is the modern current of thought that is there in the field of mechanical engineering? So, what are the new inventions or discoveries that basically inventions that are made, new innovations that are there in the field of both your academic subject, both your optional subject, and any project that you might have done that you have showcased in the DAF, or any hobby or interest that you have cultivated. So, if the hobby is astronomy or star gazing, right, or if the hobby is watching documentaries on space exploration, right, the board inherently expects you to be a curious being, right, who is well aware of all these modern currents of thought and any new innovations that have taken place in the field, right. And another obvious expectation is your basics must be strong, right. So, what we ignore is that there is a mechanical engineering field. So, many people were coming and asking, no, mechanical engineering is there and I have these keywords in the DAF. Now, what to prepare? What kind of questions I have to prepare, right. So, first one is the basics, the most basics. You can impress anyone in the room by your sound knowledge of concepts, especially the basics, right. You go to any part of the world, you talk to anyone, any audience in any subject, if your basics are strong, they will be impressed by you, your knowledge and your personality. So, basics must be sound. You might have pursued graduation 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 1 year ago, or even 7, 8 years ago, does not matter. You have to go back to basics and you must revise and remember your basics. This is non-negotiable, right. Second one, which you might have missed. Now, in the engineering, when you are pursuing engineering or economics or statistics or medicine or law in your college, it is very rare that you might have been taught about these modern currents of thought or new things, new advanced, new innovations that are taking place in your respective fields, right. And after the college, it is even more rare that you would have ever by yourself read about these kind of stuff, right. You wouldn't have done that, you have waited mechanical, civil or whatever you have done during graduation so much that you wanted full stop. It happens in UPSC also, like once you get selected, you won't again read newspapers or any these things. Very few people will continue to read newspapers. So, these two must be given importance, and there are two more aspects related to them. One is the application part of it, right. So, okay, you have basics of mechanical engineering and then the advanced, the new innovations, everything related to your field. Now, can you apply them, right? Can you apply those principles, those basics, that knowledge in solving day to day problems? So, they might give you a case study, they might ask you a simple question like in this room how much electricity is being consumed, right. So, how does this particular this camera or a fan or AC work? These are the real questions that are asked in the interview. You can go you can check the transcript. So, they have asked, so how does an induction motor work, right. So, in the AC, how is the air is cooled. So, how the heat transfer takes place, right. So, you see that AC, it is given like 3-star, 4-star rating, right. What does it mean? From 3-star to 4-star, how much heat you are saving, right, how much efficiency you are building, right. Your mechanical engineer explain this, what is the process. So, this is the application part. So, which requires you to be present in the room and then apply your mind, show strong presence of mind. So, you will know the answer, but in the real interview what happens? Yeah, because of nervousness or unexpected nature of the question, you will not answer that question to their satisfaction, right. So, we will discuss lots of examples. Now, I have categorized based on various experiences and other things in addition to these qualities. So, which can be actually categorized as 6 broad headings. So, I will give the headings within that certain qualities that are thoroughly tested during the course of the interview, right. So, one is critical thinking. The first heading you must please note down everyone, critical thinking. So, all these qualities are tested through multiple different questions, and source of these questions are, one is your DAF, second yeah, current affairs also is there, one is your DAF, second one your own answers, right. Your own answers are the source of their questions, and in an ideal interview your own answers must be the largest source of questions in the interview, right. So, that is the ideal interview where your own questions, your own answers lead to follow up questions. So, that is the, so another source of question is their own experience, their own wisdom, their own academic experience or whatever it is. And fourth, as I said, the recent current affairs or that day's headlines or something. Again, when it comes to current affairs, stop reading it from 1 year along and all. So, from now onwards you start taking current affairs seriously. So, regarding current affair I have my own different thought, I will talk about it like just 2 minutes later. So, now under critical thinking, within critical thinking what are the qualities you have to exhibit. So, we have different source of questions. So, through these questions they are testing every quality that we are going to talk about, right. So, every question is intended to test one of these qualities, again not the content, not the general knowledge, but behind your response, behind your answer there is a quality that is exhibited, right, without your knowledge. One is dealing with complexity. So, within critical thinking, how does a candidate deal with complexity? Ability to handle ambiguity or dilemma. Ability to handle ambiguity or dilemma. Seeing issues from multiple perspectives. Seeing issues from multiple perspectives. Seeing issues from multiple perspectives. Ability to uncover flaws, FLAWS, ability to uncover flaws in arguments. Ability to uncover flaws in arguments. Ability to ask good questions. Ability to ask good questions. Now, under this critical thinking aspect, last two are mostly part of your preparation, right. Ability to ask good questions, even that is also being tested in some of the interviews. At the end, do you have any question for us, right. But more than that, its use, this critical thinking power, one of aspect is asking good questions is more important during preparation. Can you ask good question about yourself? Can you ask good question about everything, the career record, that DAF, right. Now, that is where I was so sad to see that there are institutions who will give you questions, ready-made questions, right. So, that is why I said it is kind of assault on your own critical thinking. They should give leads, they should definitely direct you, they should give you hints about in what ways to think, because everybody will not have that quality, right. But this asking good questions, right, is fundamental to very good preparation for interview, right? You have to anticipate questions from different perspectives, right, about every keyword that exists in your DAF. And from today onwards, from now onwards, you start framing questions from every dimension. Now, so what happens is that we don't think actually, right? Because of our mobile phones, because of our emotions, the other thoughts that keep coming and going. So we don't sit silently for a moment and we don't think about ourselves. So we don't think about our own strengths or weaknesses, about our own past. So for example, in the morning we were discussing a question, introduce yourself, right? This is a standard question that may come, may not come in the interview. Introduce yourself. Now to introduce yourself, you should have thought about yourself a lot, right? So you cannot just think about the name of the place where you come from, your name, father's profession, right, your education, your work experience. There is so much beyond these things to you, right, that we seldom think about that. So we don't think about it, right? So now if you think about yourself, if you can give any random DAF, I will introduce you for yourself. Can I do it? Do you have any DAF? Anyone? Have you brought DAF here? So of course I am not him, right? So he can introduce himself better than what I am going to do, right? So I will just focus on what he has written, right? I will try to come up with introduce yourself for Gaurav here, okay. Okay, so I will introduce, okay. ये थोड़ा ड्रामा करना पड़ेगा. So I am Gaurav Yadav, sir or ma'am, I am Gaurav Yadav. So I am deeply interested in issues related to democracy and development. I am a graduate of
Economics.
Yeah, so I am a honors economics graduate from the Hindu College. So where I cultivated deep interest in. So you can list out the interest, that is development. Development is a keyword, and then don't focus too much on your parents or your other things. So talk about anything that you have done that might not be mentioned in the DAF. Is there anything that you have done but not mentioned in the DAF?
No sir, I have mentioned most of the things in the lab.
No, there is merit scholarship, there is voluntary.
The major things I have mentioned.
So can you go back to your memory lane, that something that you have done, might have ignored, like thinking like silly or something. तो कुछ तो होगा, like you have to go back the memory lane.
Participating in Olympiads I have not mentioned.
Okay.
Mathematics Olympiad for example.
Then, so in the college, your college secretary, as college cultural secretary, did you do any unique?
Organizing fest, the annual cultural fest of Hindu, the Mecca.
Apart from that, any other
Looking after college issues,
examples?
for example, the library issue, books and all are there or not.
Okay. Now as part of it,
Papers are there or not.
so you are interested in development. As part of that interest in development, apart from reading books, anything that you have done? You don't remember? Okay, fine. So I am, sir, ma'am, I am Gaurav Yadav. I am a honors graduate. I come from Uttar Pradesh, and I come from the land of Jhansi, so which we all know, why it is famous for. So growing up, I developed my keen interest in economics, right? And while pursuing economics, I also developed interest in development and democracy. I am always fascinated with how democracy is evolving, right? I am also fascinated by the relationship between democracy, development, capitalism. So these issues keep not only fascinating me, sometimes I also worry about some of the issues here. And also I play volleyball, and for some reason I have developed interest in the investigative web series also. So nowadays we get lot of them on OTT, sir. So I developed interest in web series also. And as I also developed leadership skills during the course of the college, where I organized many events, many fests, and also I was sub coordinator NSS, right? Yeah. So I was also actively involved in the national social scheme, where I was part of the activities in teaching underprivileged children and this and that. So I think that's it, ma'am, about me, something like this. So the introduce yourself should be as organic as possible. It should not be like mechanical. People say, so I am from Uttar Pradesh, I am from Jhansi, my father is working here, my mother is working here, I graduated from Hindu college in economics, and what I was working in McKinsey or JP Morgan. I resigned recently. Currently, I am preparing for civil services, right? So instead of this answer, so this answer anyway they have the details. Ideally, in the introduce yourself, this is your biggest what?
It should be more like storytelling.
More like storytelling, where you are in a subtle way you are selling yourself. I mean, branding yourself, right? In a very subtle way, in a more organic way. At the same time, it is your biggest opportunity to tell things that you might have missed putting in the DAF, right? So I have seen people, they have not elaborated. For example, morning I was having a discussion. So that girl went to Japan as part of student exchange, right? She has named the name of the program. Nowhere it is evident that she went to Japan or another country as part of student exchange. The word student exchange is not there, nothing. Name of the program, name and program, only 2 words are there. Now it is a 50-50 chance. The board may ask, may not ask about it, like what is this program about, right? So everyone will not be keenly interested to know what is it about. Now if you had mentioned that you are part of this, definitely there will be a direct question on that. Now introduce yourself is an opportunity to bring it up. So where you can talk about such kind of things. So anybody who has missed anything in the DAF, the question on introduce yourself or even why civil services, right? So if you think that some of you missed some substantial work, substantial exposure that you have had because of certain program, that also can be brought in the why civil services. But ensure that it is not forcefully done. It should not look artificial, that intentional, that you are trying to somehow you are trying to bring it to the notice of the board. The moment you do that, if it comes across as intentional, it is gone, right? So that is kind of dishonesty. So then the leadership, right? The second quality we were talking about, leadership. One we talked about critical thinking. The second one is the leadership. So under leadership, they are silently observing you, right, and then assessing you. So now how do they assess leadership? So some of the qualities, ability to demonstrate initiative, right? It can be there in the DAF, it may not be there in the DAF, but in some of your answers, especially in case study like answers, ability to demonstrate initiative, ability to justify decisions, ability to motivate or empower your colleagues, teammates, showing conviction in your decision, ideas or thoughts, conviction. good judgment and integrity. Good judgment and integrity. It's a sound judgment and integrity. Ability to resolve differences. Ability to resolve differences. Ability to handle pressure. So this leadership is tested. One, many people would have written, I was coordinator, I was student guide, I was cultural secretary, right? So now you are presented in the DAF. How are you going to do justice through your answers, right? Now there will be very less questions on like how did you handle the situation, right? As part of cultural secretary, what did you do? But mostly through case study questions. So you are a SP of a district. So in your district, like it can be a communal clash, it can be a rape case, it can be some kind of a political tussle that has taken place. So how are you going to handle the situation, right? In case study kind of questions, all these qualities, right, will be tested. So for that, you have to think differently. I mean, not think differently in the sense, not like the way you do in mains, handling a case study, right? I will conduct Nukkad Nataks, right, street-wide awareness campaign, this and that. Mostly what people write, in the mains, the way they think, it should not be the case. Here we will have less time. So there you will have 15 minutes to answer. Here you will have less than 1 minute or maximum less than 2 minutes, right. So in those 2 minutes, you have to show all these qualities, right. And then third quality is learning orientation. For me, this is the most important, learning orientation. Are you a learner by nature, by personality? Learning orientation. So in this intellectual curiosity, within learning orientation, what are the qualities that the panel is testing, assessing? Intellectual curiosity. Are you a quick learner? Ability to learn quick. Showing flexibility and adaptability. So flexible and adaptive. Flexible and adaptive. Open to new ideas. Open to new ideas. Innovative thinking. Can you think out of the box? Innovative thinking. Ability to reflect on mistakes and make improvements. Ability to reflect on mistakes and make improvements. So it happens in the course of the interview. Sometimes you may tell something, right, that might go against your own conviction, maybe against your own conscience, against your own logic also, right. But do you have this learning ability in a way that you quickly understand your mistake, right, in a polite way you apologize for that and then make an improvement. But most of the aspirants go with the notion that we should not accept our mistakes, right, and in that moment of anxiety, in that moment of pressure, we actually forget that, right. So what happens in this interview, we treat it as a question and answer session, right. Unknowingly we have this notion that in a way there are 20-25 questions that will be asked, and because of all these clouded judgment, these fears and everything, we end up treating them as question and answer session. So morning also I gave a feedback, he gave brilliant answers, most of the question, but I was thinking something is missing, right. So something is missing, that is motivating me to further engage you. The quality of the answers were good. So then I again thought about the whole interview, and then what I realized was that for most of the questions he was just giving mechanical answers in a way that he was not engaging me, he was not involving me in his conversation, right. So, soon after the question was ending, he was giving answer and anticipating another question, right. So, you get it, you are answering, you are anticipating another question, you are not expecting, or you are not another response in a way that the question is kind of follow up question, and in your answer there is no reference to say your previous answer or my previous question, or there was no pause between the point where you kind of expect me to nod or appreciate, right, like not intentionally consciously, but it naturally happens, right. So, that is how it should be, because there will be 5 members here one on one, in the real interview 5 members, one will be nodding, one will be curiously observing, anticipating any new perspective or new dimension from you. So, we have to be mindful that there is an audience, a curious audience who are observing us, and we have to consider them, right. The moment it become kind of conversational will happen again, as I said, if the source of their question is your answer, if that starts happening, so that is the point where 190 plus will start happening, right. At the end they have to feel that you are one among them, right, they have to feel your presence, right. They are sitting to select you at the end of the day. So, in the UPSC interview or in any other interview, the people who are interviewing you are not there to reject you, they are not at all sitting to reject you, they are basically there to select everyone who is walking into the interview room. But we kind of create that hostile environment, like hostile in the sense not in that the actual meaning of hostility, we create a wall between us and them, right. It can be through body language, it can be through our responses, it can be through superficiality in our responses, right. So, we do not go to the depth and diversity where a conversation can be struck. So, that is where everyone has to work. So, now next quality is problem solving. So, leadership and problem solving are tested through case study approach. So, under problem solving, seeing multiple possibilities, ability to see multiple possibilities of solving a problem, ability to see multiple possibilities, ability to evaluate options, ability to synthesize or integrate information, ability to synthesize or integrate information. The source of information could be the question, right, or your own knowledge about the particular issue. And multidisciplinary approach, synthesize or integrate information, multidisciplinary approach. So, this is one more aspect which is lacking in most of the answers, multidisciplinary approach. And ability to think on feet, which is nothing but strong presence of mind, ability to think on feet, the instantly you have to think, showing strong presence of mind. And coming across as resourceful, right, resourceful with ideas, resourceful with solutions, resourceful, being resourceful. So, another quality is the teamwork. I mean, next heading you can write teamwork. So, at the end of the day you are not going to work alone, right. So, the entire job is going to be a teamwork. In that, consensus builder, can you build consensus? Listen to others, can you listen to others? Strong emotional intelligence, ability to collaborate, collaborative, are you collaborative? Ability to work in diverse teams, ability to work in diverse teams. So despite having so many differences, can you work, can you get along with the people? Aware of diverse and global perspectives. Aware of diverse, here you should be aware of diverse global perspectives or global best practices to apply in your team to find a solution. Ability to build professional relationship and network. Ability to build professional relationship and network. And ability to use informal channels. So the last is something related to technical skills. Okay, you can label it as technical skills, where so your knowledge component will come into picture. Under technical skill, you can write your conceptual clarity, right? Sound concepts. Your tech and social media savviness. Are you updated with technologies like tech savviness? Can you link technology? Can you bring technological dimension in most of your responses? Data driven. Data driven. And research skills, right? Right. So these are the set of qualities in some combinations, right? And see, this interview is not a random exercise. So we feel like in 20 minutes they will ask some random questions, and we say something. We have heard all these things. No? Interview is so subjective, interview unpredictable, and everything. So what I believe is that within UPSC, all these members have evolved, their own framework based on the expectations, keeping syllabus as their guide, and actually they do it scientifically, in my opinion, right? And I have clearly seen there is kind of a correlation between the marks and personality. You may disagree with me, but even I used to be like this, cynical in the beginning. It's very subjective and all. How can they give me 210 marks? How can they give less marks to somebody, something like that. So even like 3-4 years, even I used to think like that. But the more and more interactions I started to have, there is a kind of relationship between your personality and how it is reflected in the marks. You may be a really good personality now here in this room, in your regular social interactions, in your homes, everywhere, but there is no guarantee that that is reflected there in the interview hall in that moment, right? So that doesn't mean that they are wrong and you are right. You have to ensure that there is this continuity of exhibition of whatever personality traits you have, even under extreme pressure like situations. You might not have been through that kind of situation, right? So that if you start developing, so now see, give a kind of a clear cut roadmap to your preparation. So keep reading these qualities and be honest with you, because everyone, even including me, I don't have many of these qualities, and you will not have many of these qualities, right? In a way, it is desirable to develop these qualities. And how to develop these qualities, right? Again, first is introspection, first identifying which qualities I don't have. Read about them, what exactly it means, what exactly this quality means. And in our day-to-day social interactions, right, and your interactions with any experts in particular field, so you have to put them into experiment. Are you a good listener, right? So in some interview I see that they don't have patience to listen to the question itself, right. So if I am saying something, they interrupt. They are in a hurry to give answer, maybe out of anxiety, maybe out of the grooming might be like that, where they are of that nature, always contribute, always keep talking instead of listening. So we come across such kind of people, right. So we have some people among them. So you have to identify these qualities and start working. See, there is something called as have heard of airport test in psychology or in interview techniques? Airport test. I came this in a Harvard document, right. So airport test is when the panel is interviewing you, right. So I am not sure in the UPSC interview they do this or not, but what is airport test in general interviews for when they are hiring you for a very big post or a very professional post? So is that they keep thinking while you are giving the answer. So you are giving the answer, they are observing you, right. Everybody is staring at you. Back in their mind there is a thought process. If I am sitting with this particular individual in an airport, can I engage with him, or can he or she engage with me for 8 to 12 hours, right. Like if I am waiting for say 4 hours, 6 hours or 8 hours, can I spend a meaningful hours with this particular individual while I am waiting for, we can also in the Indian context we can say railway test or train test or something. So can I engage in meaningful conversation with this individual and kind of establish a professional relationship, right. So that is where this that variety and depth of interests, right, different dimension, different perspectives in your answers come into picture. So if you naturally have depth and diverse interest, so anybody can talk to you for hours together, right. And if you lack them, it is very difficult to engage you, and that is when there are broadly two types of questions in the interview, right. So what we call as open-ended questions, others are factual questions. If you are getting more factual questions, that means you are lacking depth, variety, different perspectives, you are not able to engage them. So the board is asking random factual questions. It is entirely your fault, right. Even if there is nothing in depth, still you can engage them through your answers, you can still engage them and motivate, encourage them to ask open-ended questions, right. And if you show lots of dimension, depth, diversity, there is so much a thoughtfulness behind your answer, ideas are fresh in your answer, so then they keep picking from there, they keep asking open analytical questions, right. And even more challenging question like situational question, case study type of questions. So that is where you will reach the zenith, the apex in the interview. So to do that, your preparation should be such that should completely move away from the way you prepared for prelims and interview, right. Prelims and mains, sorry, the way you prepared from prelims and mains and the way you are preparing for interview are totally, ideally from day one it should be like this, but now because you are starting interview preparation, right, how will you bring that depth and diversity? Can you bring it from reading Insights current affair material? No, never, any other current affair material. So first stop visiting any coaching institution website for your current affairs. For God's sake, my request, if you really want to score very good marks in the interview, stop buying current affair materials, downloading them or visiting any institution to. People are enrolling for current affairs for interview also. Seriously, like, I mean, you think for a moment, like I don't have anything again, like I don't know who does it and all, I am kind of I don't know which institution does what, I am really unaware of it, but I have heard that people come and ask, are you going to conduct current affair module for interview? Right. I mean, how can any teacher standing here tell you that these are the current affairs that you should read for interview. Any current affair, any knowledge that you are going to gain should be purely driven out of your curiosity and your individual interest, right? So you may be so much interested in technology related current affairs, I tell you spend more time on that, right, in addition to others. Let it be driven by your own curiosity, hunger for, right, kind of intellectual curiosity. So don't go in that route and come across as artificial, like they are putting a boundary. So these are the most important current affairs, you read them and you read all the current affairs, right. In the interview we don't know. Yesterday was one person was telling me that I gave interview in 2020, right. So prepared 4 months. At that time there was so much time for interview because it got postponed. Read every current affairs, read everything, and then after coming out of interview I felt, why did I do everything, right? Everything I did was waste because the questions were totally different in the interview, right? They were mostly based on DAF, mostly based on the individual sitting in front of them rather than, and I will tell you based on my experience, they actually don't want to ask questions on current affairs, right? It is again assault on their own intelligence, insult to their own intelligence to keep asking Russia-Ukraine crisis for you, for her, for him, again and again. Answer is going to be same, right? If they ask 10 people, so mostly the answer is going to be the same. Then they stop asking the question, right? They also want diversity in their lives. They also want some kind of depth from you. So don't focus too much on current affairs. If at all, anyway you have to prepare. The way to prepare for current affairs, in my opinion, like be hungry for it, like consume it like anything out of pure interest. So read every magazine that is there, not our current affair magazines, right? For example, you have, right, so many magazines are there, The Week, India Today, Outlook, right, Undercurrents, Seminar, Frontline. So forget about their ideology, right, left or anything, keep reading them. Newspapers also, so read Live Mint, read Business Standard, Economic Times, The Hindu, Indian Express, only the editorial part, right, mostly the editorial part of multiple newspapers and multiple magazines. There is EPW magazine also, right. So only selectively, again you don't have to read all the technical, unless it is related to one of the words that I have mentioned in your DAF, don't read these magazines, right. But again, so don't go in a structured way also, my opinion. So when you go structured way, it is very difficult to think multidimensionally, so in the interview. So for example, if you are reading only about, let's say, India neighborhood relationship right now, suddenly in the interview I ask something related to India and say South America relations or something, it is difficult to come out of Indian neighborhood in your answers, right. So ultimately what matters in the real interview is your ability to think instantly, apply your mind, right. So we were discussing that also. What happens when I ask a question, two things happen. One, either you are thinking about the notes, the books you have read, right. So have I covered this particular question or this particular topic in my preparation, or you forget about it, okay. So you apply your mind, you try to use common sense, right, you try to use your logic and try to come up with the answer. So for me this answer sounds more virginal than somebody trying to recollect. When you are trying to recollect, you get nervous actually, right. If you get stuck in between your answer, you actually get nervous. So try to let it be organic, everything you do, right. The moment you try to give it a shape or a framework or something, it doesn't work, because you never know anything that you are preparing in this interview, right. So might not come in the interview. The interview is still uncertain, right. You don't know what you are going to expect. So again, based on so much of interaction, I have evolved my own scale here in the interview. So what I believe is that when you walk in the hall, right. So I believe so as you walk, I believe 185 marks is reserved for you, right. So you are walking in the interview hall, you are going and sitting in front of them. On the chair, this mark is already kept for you actually, right. And now, based on whatever kind of preparation you make and whatever mindset you walk in, so the journey could be towards 124, one of the lowest marks I heard in the recent times, last 3 years, 124. So or it could be, so let's say 209. So 215 was in 2021, 20. So last year is, I think 209 or 209 was the highest, I think, right. I believe if you go there, sit quietly, smile a little bit, right, aram se, in a very calm manner, answer something, walk out, somewhere around you will still get it, right. But if you start screwing up your interview, starting from the way you walk, the way you take the chair, the way you artificially wish everyone, she is not looking at you, still you are waking her up and wishing them, good morning ma'am, right. The ma'am is not looking at you, still somebody has told you. So like Japanese, you have to sit in front of everyone, go and wish everyone, right. That is not organic, right. You don't do that on day-to-day basis, right. So when you are walking in a teacher's cabin or in your professor's cabin, what do? You wish them, but it is like more organic, right. Should be respectful, formal. But here also, like as soon as you walk in, the one who is looking at you, you wish them first. Someone is noticing you are entering, right. Others, like in a whispering way or something, in an organic way, you can just say, so good morning sir ma'am, good morning sir ma'am, just take the seat slowly without making noise. I mean, let them ask you. So you have to say UPSC, government job. So you have to stand there and then they will ask you to sit, okay, sit, and then you will sit. And in some awkward moments, without asking you to sit, they will ask you the question, right. I mean, you are there, you have entered the room, so they assume that either they have told you to sit or you might already be sitting, some assumption. So they will directly ask you, introduce yourself, you are still standing. So what will you do? What?
We'll ask them whether I can sit or not. It will be more comfortable in answering the question.
Correct. So how will you do it? So what she is saying, she will ask them to, if she can sit.
Could I please sit and then answer?
Could I sit and then answer the question? You will say that. No, you should not say that. Right? Huh?
Answer while standing.
Like initiate answering, like show awkwardness, right, with a smile. I mean, if you are calm and normal, you will actually do that, right. So then definitely 100% within fraction of second they will ask you to sit. So they won't make you stand and answer, right. So my opinion is to take a chance, try to initiate the answer, right. Look at the chair and look at them, maybe like that. And then they will definitely ask you to sit, right, and then sit and then definitely say, compulsorily say thank you, right. So don't forget these niceties in between, and they should be respected. It is not like they want to be respected, they should be respected, right. So they are somebody who is going to give you a job for lifetime, right. So they should be respected, there should be utmost respect for them, irrespective of what your research says about them, right. So you do your research and you know about them, you have heard stories about them, right. He has that ideology, this ideology, he is from this, that, right. You might have read about their track record also, achievements. So don't be biased, at any cost don't be biased. So when you enter without any expectations, without any assumptions. These two are killers. Expectations and assumptions. Expectations driven by some of the things you have mentioned in the DAF. So you are so passionate about something, and you have studied so much about it, so you are expecting 1 or 2 questions from that, right? So go without expectation. So don't expect anything. So go without expecting any question from your DAF, without expecting any question from anything. Go as a zero, blank slate, let them ask anything, right? In that moment, whatever comes to my mind, I will answer honestly, plainly, without any assumptions, without any presumptions, without any pretension that I am smart or I am something like this, right? So you answer, you don't know, you plainly say you don't know the answer without any hesitation, without any regret, without any guilt, right? Without showing anything on your face. You don't know, you have to develop this, especially saying I don't know, right? And we are developed, cultivated, and brought up in such a way that we have to answer, right? In school we have to answer every question to score highest marks possible. So there is a tendency unknowingly developed that we feel like we need to answer every question. Mains also, last time when I said leave 1 or 2 questions where you don't know the answer, there was a rebel, like here. How can anyone say that to leave 1 or 2 questions in mains? I said if you don't have anything, if you don't know anything about that question, leave it. That is honesty for me, right? And there is resistance. You feel like you have to compulsorily answer. You have to answer something, right? So that is not the way in the interview, especially in the interview. At least in mains, somehow I don't know. So I firmly believe if you answer to the question where you don't know the answer, you will definitely score low marks, right? But in the interview, it should never be done. On the other hand, it is still an answer, right? When you say I don't know to a question, you are still answering the question, right? So the honesty is actually visible in your tone, in your personality, right? So this journey towards this so many marks like 175, 160 plus is selection. 160 plus, they want you to be in some service, any service, right? Anything below 160 in my opinion is kind of rejection, right? So less than 160 will start happening from the moment they notice that you are nervous, but you are not recovering from that nervousness. Few minutes it is natural for anyone to get nervous. For me also it happens. When I come on the stage, when I go on the stage, anywhere, everywhere, 2 to 3 minutes I am also nervous, right? I think Modi will also be nervous, I don't know, sorry. So any individual, those who think they are Iron Man of India or world or something, no? So that nervousness is common for few seconds at least, but ability to recover from that nervousness, right, is most important. And that is more important because they actually do something about it. The panel members, they are very cordial, they actually support you, they try to ask simple questions so that you somehow recover. If you are not recovering, right, and for some reason if you keep going down, it is impossible to score above 160 plus. So first and foremost, conquer your anxiety, right? Ensure that you are mentally very strong, right? Your mental caliber is really strong on that day. So but by sheer confidence, by just staying confident throughout the interview and telling them yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, to the whatever question they are asking, I believe 180 plus you can easily score. That is perfectly in your hand. Other mistakes people do is again lack of consistency, right? Lack of consistency between what they have shown in the DAF, what they are representing, or what they are presenting themselves in front of the board. So here you have created huge expectation that you won multiple Model United Nations, you won multiple Olympiad, you went for student exchange program, you know, you were student coordinator for 4,000-5,000 students, right? You conducted so many fests, you recruited people, like so many achievements are there, but in front of them you are not appearing like that, you know, a person of so much strength, so much of initiative, so much of leadership skills, right? So that disconnect between what you have presented in the DAF, what you are in real in front of them, will result in lower marks, right? So that is why everything in DAF should not be knowledge oriented, should also be attitude oriented. So again, if you were a leader once, even now you are a leader, the UPSC, don't blame UPSC, right? That after spending 3-4 years, for some reasons your confidence might have gone down, right? So you might have questioned yourself multiple times, but that doesn't mean that anything that you did during the college days is dead. You are still that leader. I am sure you are still a better leader than you used to be, right? You just have to do that self discovery, right? Don't outsource to technology. So do by yourself that self discovery, or don't outsource to coaching institutions also, right? That self discovery has to happen where you know your true potential, right? And when you sit there, that should be visible, that should be felt in the room. I actually feel, you know, some candidates, day before yesterday I met 2 candidates, I told them 200 plus. Yesterday one candidate I told him 200 plus, and when I did that, there were 1 or 2 candidates, I told them note down their names, right? If they score less than 200 plus, you come and, you know, meet me again, and I am 100% sure. And this is not prediction based on, you know, like astrology or, you know, a random guess or anything, right? This is purely based on interaction, you know, experience, where you see a personality so solid, so strong, so clear in his thought, so focused, so determined, you know, applies common sense, and there is so much of depth, variety, you know, different dimensions in the way they are putting the point. No unnecessary explanation, no unnecessary background, unnecessary context, unnecessary introduction. Hitting the bullseye, you know, the moment the question is asked, you hit the bullseye without any nonsense, like, and then you are confident about it, you know, about what you are saying, and you are also accommodative. So you are respectful, you are respecting every single question of mine, right? And there is curiosity, anticipation for the next question out of curiosity. So not out of, you know, nervousness, like, you know, what question could come, nothing like that. And, you know, you are flexible, you will accept that you don't know something in a humble way, but not in a submissive way, right? So you can clearly say that, you know, this candidate is cut out for the toughest job, right? So that is how you have to transform yourself from now. And I believe it is just like, you know, that is there within you. You just have to remove the chunks, you know, that have stuck to you, right, over the period of years. And for that, you know, some people are lucky that they had got the exposure, right? There are 2 category of people. Some of them had got the exposure, some of them have got the exposure by virtue of, you know, maybe their parents were in services or well placed, they took them to different best schools, best colleges, and they were taken to different places, exposed to different cultures, different people, their thinking, right? They were made to read books, they were made to read papers from the very beginning. So that set of people, if they do justice in the interview, they score well. There is another category by virtue of their poor socio-economic situation or, you know, lack of opportunities, but they have talent to reach the interview. Many of them actually reach the interview, but they may not have that kind of exposure, right, to bring that, you know, the experiential part in their answers, or, you know, that different perspectives. Now what should these people do? So my suggestion is that go for books. Now again, not your conventional books. For example, if you have put meditation as your hobby, right, or even cooking as your hobby, even so mundane, you know, the usual cooking, traveling, gardening, whatever it is. So develop depth in those kind of hobbies through expose yourself now, expose in the way that, if possible to travel, visit gardens, different botanical gardens or anything, talk to people who actually maintain one of the big gardens, right. There may be videos they talking about how they do it, there may be books written about gardening, something like this, right, something centered around ideas, not on the information. The books centered around ideas but not on the facts or information. So if you mentioned artificial intelligence as your hobby, like learning about artificial intelligence, so my suggestion, identify 2 to 3 books written by the experts in the field, or somebody might have brought the multidisciplinary, some sociologist might have written something about artificial intelligence. So your optional may be sociology, and then there is this artificial intelligence. So if you want depth and if you want to bring diversity, you have to go through, read books out of interest, right. Again, don't treat it as a burden or anything here. You have to do purely out of love for this particular thing. So for example, you have mentioned development. So my suggestion, development and for democracy, there are so many documentaries, right, and of course you are already reading books on democracy, development. So try to ensure that there is a diversity in the authors you read, right. So it should not be just the very popular authors that we frequently see, right. So like when you click a book on Amazon, right, there will be a recommended list of books, few more books. So you are reading a book of let's say who?
Why Nations Fail by
Huh.
Denise Moglu and James A. Robinson.
Okay. So why nations fail, you are reading a book. So under that there will be like 10 other recommendations in the Amazon, right. If you just search, I will do it for you, right. So why nations fail, the origins of power, prosperity and poverty. Okay. So there are like you might also like, there is a category, right, a nation of idiots, passage to India, the wealth of nations, the politics by Aristotle, they have mentioned that also, nationalism by Rabindranath Tagore, the art of war, beyond good and evil, there is something about nation, beyond good and evil. I think free economics you might have read, right? Yeah. So this is again out of curiosity. You don't have to read like tens of books, maybe like 2-3 extra books, right? And read not for the interview, for yourself, just to enrich your thoughts about this particular issue. So everyone must identify any keyword that is there in your DAP and you should read. You might not have put reading books as your hobby, right, reading fiction or non-fiction. So at least this is your opportunity. And people also ask me, should we balance between prelims and interview? So my suggestion, if you have reached interview stage, forget prelims, right, totally 100% focus on the interview. And it really requires lots of preparation. These qualities are not easy to come by, right. And if you really work with sincerity, if you develop them, it will help rest of the life also, right. And depending on the date of your interview, if your interview is in the very beginning, first week, second week, totally on interview. If it is in the second month, maybe little bit of prelims you may read, but again I don't know like what extra you will read for prelims, right. So maybe whatever static notes you have, you might just revise your basic history, geography, polity, economy, environment, science and tech, art and culture, but largely the focus should be on the interview preparation. So you know that you might have done the calculation. So even if your marks is 1 or 2 marks above the cutoff, right, any score above 198 plus will get you rank actually. So it is assured that you are going to get a rank. So that assurance is there actually. So logically speaking, even if at the cost of next attempt or skipping the next attempt, right, in the worst case scenario, invest everything you have, every energy, every and try to score 198 plus. It is possible, right. So you have to discover yourself, the best version of yours. So to some extent you have arrived there, right, through all these failures and other things, but if you can reinvent yourself, it is going to be a possibility, right. So earlier we were discussing these case study questions, right, where leadership, teamwork and another quality of problem solving will be tested. So usually what happens when there is a case study in the interview, we again try to focus on the solution part, right. For example, you might have come across that case study like so you are in the district, you have gone to address the problem of stone pelting, where like hundreds of people are pelting stones, and you have gone with only 2 more policemen, and you have a rifle or you have a pistol, and somehow they outnumber you, you are cornered, right. It's kind of a life and death situation. So it is one of the case studies that was asked in the interview. Another case study was like not case study, asking a question. One person was tied to the jeep and was driven, right, to avoid yourself from pelted by stones as a human shield, right. So we focus on the solution, we start scratching our head, what could be the solution to the problem, the end of the issue, how to end it, how to solve, right. So we keep thinking about the solution, but in reality in the interview, more than the solution, what they are really observing is that how you are thinking about the problem, your entire thinking process. Are you thinking from different dimensions, different perspectives? Are you considering every stakeholder, right? How are you analyzing the situation? So in your conversation you have to start talking about it, not directly, like you can say ki, so this is a really a difficult situation to be in. I think this solution should be looked from the perspective of both stone pelters, right. So my own security and also the security of 2 more policemen that are there, but also from the angle of the perception, this issue might create based on the outcome it might result in, right, the consequences. So the consequences are not just for his life or anyone's, but also for the nation's image as well, right. So in that sense, sir, my approach will be you solve it, okay. So the way you have to start is something like this, not directly mechanically starting like ki, because my life is under threat, I will take the rifle and I will shoot in the air first. If they don't disperse, then I will shoot someone in the leg or head, right. What?
Below the belt X.
So I'll shoot them like below the legs or belt or wherever, and something like this, right. So the answer becomes bit predictable, mechanical. It shows that you are thinking like everyone. So most of the people would think in the similar line, right. Are you applying common sense? Are you applying some of the wisdom that you might have developed through your own leadership initiatives? So you might have solved not similar but some kind of tricky situations as part of your leadership. Are you bringing that experience here, right. So this is what they are testing. Outcome you shoot or you don't shoot, they are not at all worried about it, right, because most of the case studies are in a way you cannot conclusively give a solution. So there are series of solutions, right, there are multiple outcomes. So you can go with the utilitarian approach that the outcome that benefits most of the people, right? So whatever be the approach, but here the problem, I mean issue is how we were solving the problem is more important than the solution itself. That you should remember in the interview, right? And when you actually engage them, when you are trying to solve, it actually feels good for them, the people who are in the interview hall, right? Your ability to engage them, talk to them, trying to get hints from them also, right? That confidence, to talk to them in a way that in a conversational way, it's really amazing when somebody does in the mock interviews, right? And never forget these niceties, these certain mannerisms, because you make it more mechanical, question and answer, you tend to forget to tell, you tend to forget say sir. People from corporate culture, they don't say sir in the beginning of their answer, right? It is out of respect, ma'am or sir, right? And using like honorable or something in as a prefix. What do you call prefix or what?
Prefix.
Yeah. So to, or it can, if it is big personalities of the past, they might be having all those, what do you call them, sobriquets. You call them Gurudev, Tagore, or Mahatma Gandhi ji, right? Shaheed Bhagat Singh. What are these? Shaheed and all. Sobriquets. Okay, fine. So you have to refer to them, right? And you have to keep respecting the board in a way that like you have to be super polite actually in the interview. If you don't hear question properly, right, what will you do? You haven't heard the question?
Politely ask.
Now how will you ask them? Yeah. So there are two strategy here. One is intentional, one is unintentional. So to test your critical powers of assimilation, sometimes what they do is that they frame an incoherent question, right? The question will not look like a question, it looks like a monologue. For 1 minute they will say something, we have seen this story, that story, you might have come across this, so this happened, this happened, this and all. So you are losing track like where it is going. So in the end suddenly they will ask something, right? So from where it started, where it ended, you don't have any clue, right? But you can have clue if you really, all your ears, and if you are really curious about what exactly they are saying. Even if it is incoherent, you can still identify certain context, in what context the question could have been framed, right? Now what happens, two things will happen here again. When such question is asked, a candidate who he or she thinks of himself as smart or something is smirking. What is smirk? SMIRK. क्या पूछ रहा है लेकिन, हाँ? या स्लाइनेस, यस. सो मतलब अंदर ऐसे लगता है कि ये कहाँ से लेके आया इसको, मतलब क्या पूछ रहा है, इसको क्वेश्चन पूछना भी नहीं आता है, राइट? Unknowingly that is reflected on your face. There are observers in the room, right? And they are observing it, it's gone, right? Secondly, you somehow don't understand the question, then in a again sly way or something, you ask for repetition of the question, right? Sorry sir, I didn't get the question, or something like, can you repeat the question? Now how can you repeat the question which he or she himself don't know, like, right? That was intentional to test your response, how you do. So the best response is try to understand, try to listen to the question, try to make sense of it, try to answer as much as, try at least, try to answer it. Is
Even if you miss out on that question, you can also say, so what I can understand
Exactly.
is, then you explain what you understand, maybe he'll fill in the gap,
Correct.
and that will be the right question.
Good, that is the right attitude. In a polite way, you try to do it, right? If
Because what I could understand from this question that has been put forth, I could understand this, and if I'm not wrong, this is the question. If I'm not wrong, can I come again, or can I just move ahead with the answer of this question? or maybe अगर कोई gap, if he notices that there is a gap that I couldn't fill in or I couldn't understand this particular aspect, then he could also fill in the gap and
They
that
will fill
gap
in
will be
actually.
the
They will fill in.
answer.
That's what. So if they notice that you are respecting the question, respecting the intention behind the question, and as she said, that is one of the approaches where you try to go ahead with the question and you will tell them ki, sir, if you don't mind, this is what I have understood. I think the context of the question is in the context of this particular incident. Coming to the question, sir, I believe you try to answer. Then they will try to, no, the context was different or something. They will inform you, they will actually correct you, right. So and then say thank you and then continue with your answer. So instead of coming across as dumb and like asking them you didn't understand anything, can you please repeat the question, something like this. So these things also you have to remember and actually practice also, right. And in sometimes it happens in mock interviews also. Some people think they are really smart, right. So we ask a question, so there is always a research behind the question and there is intention behind the question, right. So they don't understand the context of the question, उनके चेहरे पे दिखता है लेकिन ये क्या पूछ रहा है, right. So that attitude you should leave. Any question, whether it is silliest question, whether it is a very important question, you have to respect, utmost respect for the people who are talking to you. It doesn't matter, right. So what kind of question they are asking, what kind of feedback also they are giving, at least as long as you were there, respect them, right. So that if you develop in the interview, you won't make that mistake, right. Okay. So this DAF section, right, so very tricky area, right. So you have carefully put now everything, and when you are answering any DAF related, especially hobby section related question, the moment I ask question, for example, if I ask, okay, which non-fiction book you recently finished reading, the first response I expect is a big smile, right. Any hobby related questions, whatever you have mentioned, right. Some people mention, I wrote a paper on this particular thing, right. I did a project on this, I interned on this. In the hobby extracurricular, they have mentioned it, absolutely all right. So if I start talking about it, your face should, क्या बोलते हैं, lighten up, and कि you should feel so comfortable that your passion is evident. So you have to smile and answer like कि yes ma'am, I completed this particular book. It is an amazing book. It talks about, give details. It talks about this particular issue, as you must be knowing ma'am. थोड़ा वो उनका भी थोड़ा, as you must have read this book, something, right. So yeah, consider them. I mean these are extreme things, but you try to involve them, right. अच्छा लगता है, like when you consider the interviewer also as part of your conversation. So your face should lit up and you should answer in such a way that the passion must be evident in these questions. So this is something amiss, and I see it is missing in most of the, because with fear some people put ki, then they think I have to prepare so much on this, now I have put it. So if you have fear, when I ask the question, that fear will be visible, right. If you are doing passionately, of course you cannot read every book on this, you cannot be knowing everything related to that. It is perfectly fine, right. It is all right. You cannot be a perfect being. So it is a fact, truth, that you cannot know everything about this particular thing. So you have to try your best. What you know, you present best. What you don't know, you can absolutely accept. And sometimes what happens, we contribute in the interview, right. So for example, I am asking about a book, and then you are trying to talk about it. You might forget a character in the book or some theme in the book. If I have read that particular book, I will contribute, right. Again you should lit up, like curiosity. Wow, I learned something, ki, some people don't thank also, some people don't again lighten up or brighten up. So उनको थोड़ा बुरा लगता है, अरे मैं भूल गया इसको, I should have actually said it. So there is a difference, right. You should not be like I should have actually said it. You should be like being grateful, like somebody actually has told you, and again curiosity, like learning mindset. So somebody has contributed, let me learn right now. So these are small nicety, that's what I was talking about. So they are also noticed, and if you keep doing this, and a image is slowly being built, from here. So if you want to make jump from 185 to 195, it is, so all the qualities related to like confidence, humility, respectfulness, common sense, right, honesty, intellectual, moral integrity, all these things. But 185 plus another 5 extra marks, 1 or 2 thoughtful answers, 190 plus. And if you want 200 plus, your absolute ability to engage them in conversation, being at ease in that room, and elevating the discourse, elevating the quality of conversation, one question after another question, where it reaches a level that they feel so happy, to actually interview, they feel so happy to have you that day in their room. In fact, they give you hints also when you are about to walk out. So the way they respect you, right? It doesn't matter whether which member it is. If you earn their respect by the end of the interview, that means it is sure shot, like 200 plus. And you can actually do it. If they notice this candidate has substance, so much at depth, at his core very strong, you will sense that respect. We respect such candidates. In the real panel, they will also respect you, right? Respect such personalities. So you have to feel it, right? So in mocks, wherever you go, you try to feel it. You try to elevate, right? So for that, the focus must be on yourself, your thoughts, inward looking in a way. So what is the best I can, without worrying about what someone is expecting, what someone is judging, right? It should always be about bringing the best out of you. If you keep doing that, one question after another, there will be a huge respect for you, and everyone will say, for example, Avinash, rank 31, he got 198. It was his first attempt, first interview. He was my classroom OGP student. So he is from National Law School. So now what is happening? We gave a rank 5 Jaydev. For him also I guided, like I took 17, 18 mock interviews for him, because there are so many issues with respect to toning down the things, not intellectual depth, he already had that, but preparing for the UPSC interview. He scored 206, so he sent his juniors, so this fellow came, and so in OGP what happens, from day one we engage with them, regular interactions while evaluating their essay, evaluating their answers. We build kind of a professional relationship, so where we keep guiding them. So during the course of guiding, I knew that he was into reading books, right? Somebody had guided with respect to writing essays in a conventional way. So then he started bringing ideas into the essay. He scored second highest marks in the essay. And during the course of interview, immediately after means we started. I also took multiple mocks. So there was nothing much to help him improve, because again, not saying sir in the answers, sounding bit informal in the answers, right? Not formal, and in sometimes going beyond the scope of the question, because had so much of information. So some kind of small issues. And after mocks I kept telling him 200 plus is sure for him, because so your thoughts, your ideas are really good. And I told him what I do, I take one-on-one marks and then I send them to Delhi. I tell them these are 3-4 institutions where you should go and give marks. Wherever he went, he got the highest marks. In some mock interviews, they actually stood up, some of the officers who are retired, they were really happy. They took his number and they shook hands, and he came and told so happily that this is what happened. So it is a possibility. I mean, this actually happens in the real interview also. So on that day, I think he would have scored even better. I think we got 198 anyway. So there was few technical questions which he couldn't handle well, right? So I don't know what happened. Maybe I think last interview or something. So that was not his best day. But despite that, So after having this post interview analysis, I still told him, doesn't matter what was the nature of question, still he will score 200 plus. I told it came 198. So what motivates me, what makes me tell is your own personality, right? It's not prediction or anything. It is just that you have to become one like that, and or you might be already one like that, you might not have realized by yourself, right? So again, while giving marks, carefully give, don't, why you should give mock interviews? Better to be
Prepared.
Of course you should give marks. I am suggesting give n number of marks, but when you go for a mock interview, why do you go? Like to address the fear factor. Okay, so to become comfortable. Yes, then rectify your mistakes. Okay.
What I explained, I haven't prepared for any interview, but from my corporate experience that I had, that every interview makes you introspect within yourself.
Hmm.
Kind of questions that they ask you, you also get to know yourself better.
Correct.
In every interview that you have.
Correct. Absolutely right. Then, so to improve yourself in what sense?
So there are certain aspects of your personality that you also might not have thought about.
Correct.
So when they ask you certain questions, you also maybe take time to reflect on it, but then later on at home also you reflect on those things and you get better prepared for the next interview.
So my suggestion, most of these mock interviews go for, to face that situation. Some people will have confidence issues, some people will have communication issues. So you see, from one mock to another mock, is your communication improving, right? So we didn't talk about the communication skill. I believe it is not like very, very important in UPSC interview. Like if you can speak normal English, it is fine, and you don't have to speak with accent, you don't have to speak with like really very fluently. They are aware of candidates coming from different background, that consideration is there. But despite not having very fluent communication skill, you can still exhibit every quality that is there, right? So English per se is not a drawback or a precondition to really have all these qualities. So come out of that. But now you can improve that also. Keep speaking in the language of medium, English or Hindi, whichever language, preferably in English. Every mock, I think you should have a diary or something. So one mock you attend. So after attending that mock, come back, list out every question that was asked in the mock interview, and list out the mistakes you did, right? Maybe based on the feedback or based on your own self-assessment. And when you go for the next mock, try to minimize them, the mistakes. So from one mock to another mock, there should be considerable reduction in your mistakes, incremental way. You cannot expect them to reduce suddenly. So try to ensure that one by one there is a reduction of mistakes, and keep getting questions from mock interviews, which is more like organic way it is done, not like in the artificial way, and keep thinking questions based on these questions. So if they have asked from this dimension, try to see after once you come home, what are the other dimensions I can think about this particular topic. So this introspection should be there. And right now, reading diverse stuff plus thinking must be given most important priority. Thinking, like sitting and thinking clearly about issues, having conviction in your answers, building conviction in your answer, having clear-cut opinions. So in these UPSC interview, there is no plus or negative, there is no positive negative, there is no double-edged sword here. Most of the answers require you to have opinion, right? And irrespective of whether it is pro-government or against government, mostly it should be pro-government with little constructive criticism, but they also value your opinion even if it is against the government, or even if it is against what they believe also. But ensure that to back your argument, your opinion, you have good number of justifications, right? If you have good number of justifications, logical reasoning, then you can present your opinion, without any fear. So it has happened even I was under the notion that every answer should be pro-government, right? So I have interacted with at least 3 candidates where, the views they presented was something not in favor of the government or what government is thinking, or what we think, certain people with ideology are sitting, or they may expect their ideology, not like that. So they may have ideology or something. Fortunately, all these people are accommodative of others' views also, provided you firmly believe in that and you stick to that by giving solid reasons, right? If lacks reasoning, if it lacks good justifications, then as we discussed in the earlier time, you may accept your mistake very politely and try to go with them, but never contradict yourself, right? And never argue with them. Like, they may say, okay, you are saying this particular point, but don't you think, so there is this dimension also. So yes sir, in a way what you are saying is definitely seen, but however, sir, what I believe is, you respect, you tell them, but again in a very polite way you come back to your argument, right? Every issue has multiple sides. You can never say what you are saying is the truth, right? So if they are contributing, again, you don't have to accept it. In a respectful way, you can say that without telling them, I beg to pardon, I don't agree with you, without saying these things. In a subtle way, you can always come back and reinforce your own view, right? So I gave example in earlier session, if you had watched that session. So there was a candidate, for him the question was asked, was it ethical for Krishna to kill? Was it ethical for Krishna to tell Arjuna to kill Karna? So he said unethical and he stuck with unethical till the last moment, and he was given, as far as I know, I think 185 plus marks, right? So he was scared. I think others might have been scared, like, you should have said. In fact, chairman or the member told him, ki, how can you say unethical? It is Bhagavad Gita, it is God, right, whom we worship. How can you say that God is unethical or something like this? So they tried to provoke him, but he stuck to his stance. In a polite, in a logical way, he kept on telling that why he considered it as unethical. Similarly, hijab issue also, you don't have to necessarily accept. You can say it should not be banned, right? You can say it should not be banned in the school and give 4 or 5 justifications. So here what I believe is, you should follow your conscience rather than what others have taught you, what others expect from you. So it is better to follow conscience and then common sense and as many justifications, like based on the logic. If you have many of them, go with that opinion, right? So that is why it is important to think now and have clear cut opinion on all the sensitive issue and any issue, right? So that there you are not confused, which stance to take. And what happens, you might change also. They might influence you to change your way, and then make you look like a fool also, right? So that is why better to have, that is why it is better to read multiple stuff, so that you will understand from different perspectives why some people are supporting, why some people are opposing. So now use your conscience, use your knowledge, common sense, wisdom to have your own opinion, in addition to what others are thinking about the issue. So this is very important. In these interview, never start your answer with it has both positive and negative. They will hate it, right? Never use the phrases like, it's a double-edged sword or something like this. Strike, with an idea in the very beginning itself. And through your point, let it be evident whether it is positive or negative. And in this interview, don't explain things to the board, right? They are so intelligent, they are so experienced. Anything you say, they will understand, unless it is related to a technical background, right? Or something that you have done, they don't know about it, explain that thing. Something related to your own experience, you have to explain. I don't know about your life, I don't know what you have done, you have to explain it, right? But something where you are talking about ideas, right? If I ask about, we were having a conversation about ki movies in 70s and 80s. So how did movies of 70s, 80s influence society at that time? And how did society in turn influence movies of 70s and 80s, right? So here the candidate directly started talking about ideas, the kind of movements those times witnessed in India, right? Movements, social movements, political movements, new economic thinking, or new wave cinema that was coming across the world. So he excellently gave he talked about ideas, and he talked about how they were linked with some of the best directors he quoted and some of the best movies example, how it was reflected in them, how in turn they also influenced a new trend of lifestyle, right? Maybe among the urban elite or even the rural aspirational communities also. So I was glued to his answer, like when there were details, there were ideas in the answer, right? So try to ensure that idea comes first, explanation is very brief, or even if it is absent, it is fine some cases, right? Again, when it comes to hobbies and interests, there you have to give examples, more details, to ensure that you have really done it, to let them know that you have actually really done it, right? So to show the depth to which you have actually done this thing, you have to give certain example. But always interview is all about ideas. Ideas are stimulating. Ideas actually impress people when especially there is one IAS officer or one IPS officer, one foreign, maybe at least 3 civil servants will be there, one from defense and one from academics, right? So they collectively have so much of experience among them, so much of books they might have read, so much exposure. So anything you say should be up to their expectations, should try to match their frequency of thinking. So in that regard you have to prepare, right? And the length of the question, if it is a question is of the what nature, less than 20 seconds, right, or even 10 seconds. So what is the definition, or what is the monument that we see in your village? Factual questions. If the question is of why nature, if they are asking you reasoning, so why do you think India and China are fighting frequently in the borders, right? Why Uttar Pradesh claims to be a developed state, but still its indicators are not indicative of that particular, do not reflect that development, which politicians try to portray. The why question, 40 to 50 seconds. So you have to give like minimum 2 good reasons, maximum 4, like 2 to 4. So don't give 1 point, explain it unnecessarily and stop there. So this is the tendency that I witness in my mock interviews. People come up with one good point, or it can be a generic point, and they explain it. By the time it is already 40-50 seconds, and then they pause, and then they will ask, can you think more, right? Are there more points or dimensions or perspectives or whatever it is? So you yourself, if you can give 2 to 3 important points, so then I will have enough content with me to ask another follow-up question, right? Secondly, if the question is of how nature, right, how will you solve this problem as a case study or something, maybe it can exceed 1 minute, right? So based on the nature of the question, you have to time your answer. So most of the reasoning why based questions, so don't go on answering unless you are compelled to give more details, like where, for example, that's what, as a awarded best volunteer by convener NSS, okay. So I would ask, like, why you are given that particular award. So you may have done like 4 or 5 significant works, you may have to explain them, right? So then it is fine. And another thing is, don't assume they are technically not sound, right? Some people have the tendency of teaching concepts. In their answers, they teach concepts. Like, for example, they assume that, okay, these people may not be knowing anything about machine learning, right? So I have been doing that. I have been coding for machines, right? Machine learning. So the tone of their answer is such that, as if it is assumption, ki these people don't know. I am technologically sound. I will explain, right? So this will be this, sir. The function of this is this and that, and we do this in this way. The tone is as if you're not explaining, like you're teaching. So avoid that. Assume that they already know it, right? Answer it in such a way that they are aware of the technicalities. So any doubts you have? Okay. So any specific doubts? So how many of you have any unique hobbies we have here? Any unique hobby? What is your hobby? Yes.
Actually, I love sports, singing, dancing.
Okay. Interior decoration. Okay. Yeah, I know yours. What about you?
Actually, I'm a bit fond of traveling, so I've been almost to all parts of India,
Oh.
barring Northeast and Andaman Nicobar. So that's on my list. I'm gonna travel in next 5 days.
Oh, Andaman Nicobar. Very good. Northeast also travel.
That's also on the plan, but that's April schedule.
Oh,
So I travel frequently once in a 2 to 3 months.
okay. Any other like totally different hatke type of hobbies? Anybody has been to Mars? Space traveling. I mean, after 20 years, that might be put as a hobby, maybe. Space traveling, hyperloop traveling. Right. So this teaching thing was something weird I came across this year. Teaching.
As a hobby.
Weird in the sense ki so many people are putting this time, like meditation. Meditation is common now. 9 out of 10 DAF has meditation, right? Some form of meditation. So I made some people remove meditation is now not hobby. It is general practice. It has become. So I don't know, for some reason most of the people had put teaching, like teaching in orphanages, teaching underprivileged kids, teaching street kids, teaching neighborhood kids, teaching kids of maids, right? Like teaching primary school kids, teaching in an NGO, then name that NGO, whatever it is. Some 10-15 people had named different NGOs. And then teaching and government schools, right? So teaching as part of CSR from your respective company. And then somebody said teaching is becoming very common. So let's say mentoring, right? Guiding, counseling, tutoring, nurturing,
So
coaching nobody wrote actually.
maybe the fine line of difference between pursuing an interest and pursuing your hobby is diminishing, because when I was preparing for CAT interview, the very first question was asked, like, what's the difference between pursuing an interest, what's the difference between pursuing a hobby? So hobby is something which you do every day
Every day.
without fail.
Correct.
And interest is something that you have recently developed and you're keen on learning more of it. So right now I'm actually following football, right? So I was rooting for France, I was rooting
It is an
for-
interest.
Yeah, or that was out of interest, because I have a friend circle who are very much passionate about football, and I grew up watching cricket. So I'm always talking about it, and then I'm left out because they are always talking about football. So I thought, okay, let's try. So during this FIFA World Cup tournament, I developed interest. Now out of my interest, I'm following this Messi and all of this because of my social circle. So this is interest. But my hobby, what my hobby is like I do keep reading about the new destination or some of the unexplored places in India or maybe abroad.
No, that's what where you have passion. No,
Yeah.
you use resources, you put resources, you put your time, you put your energy into it.
Even I have this big one list of like bucket list which I want to do things on this or this यहाँ पे जाके मुझे ये करना है. I got such one big list. I keep on adding things. So this is what I regularly do. Maybe even before sleep.
But that should be reflected in DAF in such a way that many people have done some mistakes. For doing mistakes before taking the DAF guidance, that now let's say you have traveled, you said you traveled almost every part of India.
Almost, yeah.
Okay, fine, except Northeast and Andaman you have traveled, right? Now there is another person who has traveled, like he is from Bhopal, now he has traveled to Indore, right? He has traveled to another part in Madhya Pradesh, right? He has traveled to his relative house in another district, and sometimes in the childhood, school days they were taken to some national park, in the surrounding. And he went to study in Bangalore, that as part of engineering. So there he visited a few of the landmarks in Bangalore, like there is Nandi Hill, there is Avan Durga, there are few places, right? So now he has also put traveling. Now the person who hasn't traveled significantly, who has traveled few places, 6-7 places, has put traveling. And you, let's say you have traveled to some 30-40 places, significant important places, and you have put traveling. In the DAF I have only these two keywords, traveling, traveling. Now how do I differentiate? How do I know that you are somebody who has passionately done and you have invested so much of time, resources, you have put savings into it, and you might have taken risks also doing it because you are so passionate about it. So that is the thing that has happened in many DAFs. So I was telling people, see, if you have really done passionately, elaborate, right?
Yes,
Yeah, like you should have put, like for example, I don't know what you have put.
no, I'm just saying that if I have done it passionately, there would be an inherent motivation or something.
They won't ask
that
any
I-
question.
No, that is something that what makes me travel. What is it that I'm
No, no,
motivating?
no. My point here is that how to present that in the DAF.
That I'll answer, that we are answering this.
What is happening is that because hundreds of people have put traveling, they don't ask anything about traveling.
Okay.
You are sitting in the interview hall, they are not asking anything about traveling because they are fed up with the traveling, because they know so many people, so many travelers have come and gone, right? In the interview. So they are fed up with their answers and everything. You are also one of those.
Maybe because I want to broaden my horizon of thoughts, maybe through the insight that I receive when I interact with people I don't know. Because there are three ways, according to me. There are many other ways, but according to me, there are three ways through which you grow as an individual. First, you speak to those who don't speak your
No, that is not the point. Like what I am arguing
what
is,
I'm trying to drive it. I'm just trying to. I'm not explaining that. I'm just trying to drive that through traveling. I grew up, and
no, you are not getting the point. Like what I am arguing basically is that for them to appreciate that you have traveled a lot, that question should come up in the interview. They should ask you that, okay, you have traveled across the country, so where you have traveled, right? They have to ask you the question. Now in the real UPSC interview, what is happening? They are not asking any question on cricket. They are not asking any question on meditation. They are not asking any question on cooking. They are not asking any question on gardening. They are not asking any question on traveling, because it has become so common, everybody. Now my point, what I was trying to say is that instead of just putting the word traveling in the DAF, you should put traveling. I have traveled across India, right? Like you can mention, like some of the unique places. For example, you might have been to, let's say, Siachen. Many people, I don't. Are we allowed to go to Siachen? I don't know. I'm just okay. So maybe you have gone to Park Strait and done scuba diving or something there, right? Or you might have been to one of the coral islands here in Lakshadweep or something. So I should know through some words that you have done that in the DAF. So what I was basically telling was that if you have done that kind of thing significantly, it should be communicated in the detailed application form. If it is not communicated, the panel will never come to know the enormity, the magnitude, the significance of your hobby. You will be left restless. You have done something so significantly, like they are not asking anything about it. there is no opportunity coming for you to bring it up in the interview, right? So my suggestion, if that happens in the interview, don't get restless, right? So that is also a strategy in the interview, to not to ask questions on familiar things, right? They might get indication that you are already good in everything that you have mentioned here. Let me close the DAF, right? Not ask a single question on DAF also. You have to be mentally prepared. That is what I said. You have to go without expectations, without assumptions, right? So if you have prepared your mind in such a way, and if you have diverse interest in reading this about everything, something about everything, so then you will be actually prepared. And if you prepare in an expected way, it is bound to happen, that disappointment is bound to happen. So ensure that next time when you feel like those who are there next year who are writing, the DAF is really good, okay. So like for example, you might have presented a paper in an international symposium, right? So you will write as part of IIT Delhi or IIT Lucknow, Kanpur, I presented a paper in XYZ international symposium. Now there is a 50-50 chance they may ask, may not ask, right? If somebody had mentioned what was the topic, I presented a paper on, right, integration of blockchain in something, maybe finance or whatever sector it is, where banking or something. So then there is a possibility that they will pick up on that banking word, blockchain, and then they might ask. Probability is very high, right? So if you haven't done these things, ensure that in the introduce yourself it is brought up. For example, if there is a question on introduce yourself, we can say I am an avid traveler, sir. I have traveled from this place to this place, except Andaman Nicobar, for which I was planning to go in April, and then secondly I have keen interest in this. So then there may be a question, right, in the following questions. So okay, wish you all the best. So prepare well for interview, personality test, and I will come again in January. If you are interested, you can give one-on-one mock with me, and if you want more mocks, I am also okay with it. From 19th to 23rd, I will be taking online mocks also from Bangalore. If you are interested, you can enroll for that also. But I think interview, as everyone is telling, might start from January 30. I am not very sure about it. I think tomorrow or day after tomorrow we might. I think Monday, Tuesday we will get the dates of interviews. So after that also we can plan. Anyway, I am coming in the first week of January here to conduct mock interviews. So the way I conduct mock interview is I show keen interest in you, right? So because I also want to learn something from you. So mine is not like rapid fire question and answer. I very rarely ask factual questions. So I focus mostly on the DAF, because I kind of show interest in what you have done, who you are, what you can offer more. So in enlightening me or in informing me. So and my feedback will be based on keen observation. So I observe with a healthy mindset of trying to give you certain constructive feedback, which has actually proven in the past for so many people to increase their scores from 140 to 190, 190 to 200 plus. There are many candidates, right? And in some cases it might not have worked also. Maybe because of my own poor feedback, or maybe they were nervous in the interview. There are some extraneous factors will be there, but I can with confidence say 90+% it has worked. So if you want some improvement in this regard, you are always welcome, and you can also take feedback from previous people who have given. So many people who are in IPS also have come and given mocks this year, IPS probationers, different service probationers, and you can talk to them. I am not selling myself, just telling that there is a genuine effort. So in trying to help you improve your scores, and you are always welcome here. Okay. So all the best. Thank you. Good night.